I remember my first year at the games. I mean, it's new. I'm going to make mistakes. Nobody has like a clean run at the games. But I just remember walking away from that year, my 15-year-old year. And, I placed well, I was proud, but I was like, I just feel like I had so many things I could have done differently or like regrets almost. And they would just keep me up at night. I'm like, geez. And then last year I was like, I'm just going to take one event by one event and just do my best in every event. And that was like exactly what I needed to do. And having that experience, now I sleep great at night.
Ooh, what is this?
I don't want Jenna to beat me on camera, bro.
I was there.
All right. I'll just put it back.
Good. Put it back.
Good morning, Misfits. You are tuning in to another episode of the Misfit Podcast. Full Goon Squad in the house. We have an honorary goon visiting today.
What's up, goon?
Heading back to her third straight CrossFit Games appearance. Jenna Michelotti, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We just got done Mock Games week. It was great to have athletes here in town. But before we talk about all kinds of other things, I want to know how your Mock Games went.
It was pretty good. Honestly, it was like a lot different than years past. I feel like each year has had its own unique kind of personality almost. And if anything, I mean, last year was really fun. I did it here with Sophie as well. And that was nice to have like somebody I'm competing against. But I feel like this year I just had the most fun.
Did you miss biking 20K underneath the sun in the, what was that, the ice arena over by my house?
I did not miss that.
And that 5K that followed?
Oh, yeah. And the like.
Didn't you send them into the Westbrook River?
Yeah, they were fighting Wesley, the snake.
That's adversity training.
Yeah, they had to
Eat your
fight
heart
the
out,
Wesley
Ben
snake.
Bergeron.
Nothing wrong.
Yeah, that's kind of rough.
It's Lake Monona training, guy. Come on. I'm training in the immune system for Lake Monona.
That is true.
I'm helping out.
That is true. How much bacteria can we get into this?
Yeah.
Running water, we're good.
Snack chat. We got to do snack chat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Start with a guest.
And do you have a snack chat or do you want to go last?
I don't exactly know what I should be saying.
All right, I got one.
We'll go first, but generally, things you've eaten recently
Oh,
Yeah.
gosh.
is the high point.
So I just got back from
high-level
a
overview.
week of vacation, and naturally vacation, things go a little off the
How
rails.
much
so
ice cream did you eat?
It wasn't really ice cream. It was other things. There's
Okay.
plenty of sugar. Actually, for that reason, my wife and I are now trying to do like a little bit of like, let's take sugar from our diet for, 36 to 48 hours.
And by you guys, you mean
24 to
she
48.
decided
She had
and
like-
you're helping her?
Yeah, she had like one some more and she feels guilty and I ate the rest of them. So
Some more.
some more.
Some more?
Yeah, some more.
I've never.
Some more. Nope. Yep. Documentary. Anyways.
I joke you not.
So you go on vacation, you go off the rails. So you get the normal staples. You got your ice cream, you got your freeze pops. It's just kind of middle of the day stuff. Got stuff for s'mores. You have some Reese's cups. You got
Backpack full of Down East cider. Yep, keep going.
The alcohol doesn't do it for me, guys. It's just not my bag. You got the pink Starbursts. You just got everything in the world, right? Like all the sugar you can find, basically. I'm like a kid at the candy store going on vacation. So one of the nights, Noelle's like, we're having a fire. She's, I'm going to turn in early. I'm like, all right, that's fine. You can leave me out here. There's like 2 or 3 chocolate bars left. There's some graham crackers.
One or two kids. Two or
No,
three
those are already asleep. They're already in bed. This is late enough for them to be in bed. So she goes to bed, and I'm out there, and I'm toasting, marshmallows, having s'mores, and then I go inside the house. She's like getting ready for bed. So she's showering, whatever, getting ready to go to sleep. I walk in the house. She goes, what does your face look like that? I'm like, look away from me. I'm hideous. I'm like covering my face immediately. I walk over to the sink in this little cabin and I can see my reflection in the window and I'm just marshmallow chocolate. I look like George Costanza in the episode where he's eating the banana split and he's just covered in like some chocolate and marshmallow. I'm like, look away. I'm hideous. I'm over the sink washing my face. Needless to say, I think I put down a family-sized bag of Reese's Cups, Starbursts, about 15 s'mores, ice cream.
My goodness.
I think half my diet was sugar for a week.
So you're not a CrossFitter because you're not allowed to have
I
sugar
know.
if you're a
Sorry,
CrossFitter.
Greg.
I don't know if you heard.
Sorry to my patron saint, Greg Glassman.
You're CrossFit Games athlete circa like 202015. You're
Not even pro.
You're a diabetic dead person right now.
Not alive anymore. But yeah, so I had to like shower after my s'mores.
What you got?
Fried rice. Stir-fried rice.
Okay.
You guys do that often?
Oh, yeah.
Fuck.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was last night.
one of my
This was
go-tos.
yesterday. I was like, basically forgot to defrost something for dinner. Hadn't done like my normal grocery shopping this past weekend. And I was like, fuck, what do I have? Got rice, like cooked white rice, whole bunch of veggies. Luckily, I have a bunch of like ginger and onions and stuff like that I'll normally cook with. And
Egg?
it was just like egg.
Yep. Okay.
And I'm like, oh fuck, and I always forget about stir-fried rice, and then I remembered, and
I never forget.
I got a lot better once you remembered.
It got a lot better once I remembered. Yeah, just
Basically a bowl of salt.
rip
so
that thing going in the wok. Yeah, just a bowl of oiled salted white rice and
Yep.
some veggies. So yeah,
I
that
do
was
a
my
bacon
snack.
jalapeno fried rice. That's very good.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I try to keep
Very
it,
good.
or well, I
kinda like
tried
Empire.
to keep
Empire's
it
something like
like
that.
Yeah.
traditional kind of like Asian ginger,
Yep.
scallions, cilantro, that sort of stuff. But that came out pretty fucking. And the July 4th crumble cookie was
Don't
pretty,
start with me.
pretty fucking good.
You can't leave that out.
It was just
What was
it was just a sugar cookie.
I told you not to
Just a
press the
patriotic
button
sugar cookie.
on his back.
America.
Okay.
The Semper Fidelis sugar cookie.
All right. I had actual real breakfast sandwiches yesterday.
Yeah, with
No burger.
cheeseburgers and
No cheese. No cheeseburger. And
you had a pizza. You had a pizza for breakfast.
I stole my wife's provolone cheese slices. She doesn't listen to this. She probably doesn't know yet.
Texting her right after podcast.
Yeah.
I already did.
Any provolone?
It's like not part of my. It's like
any
not part
sliced
of my
provolone?
repertoire. But
Provolone?
I did a everything bagel, cream cheese on the bottom, egg, and I put the lid over a sunny side up egg. Well, maybe more than one breakfast sandwich.
16.
With the provolone on it. So it was just. I didn't have any like
So you had
breakfast meat.
bagel, cream cheese, egg, provolone cheese.
Yeah, on an everything bagel,
you're a cheese guy.
and I really considered making a third one.
Meat? You got any other meats?
I didn't
on
have
there?
anything.
They got like the
No.
hotel.
I didn't have,
mishmash
it was
from
actually honestly sort of like what you were
Yeah.
getting into. I was like, okay, what do I got? What do I have here?
Yeah.
And I
Kitchen
like
sink.
felt lazy enough that I was like, you know what? I am gonna live on the edge and steal this cheese and see if she finds out. We have a drawer
clothes are on the long
with
way.
a like ungodly amount of different kinds of cheese in it. But if I open it up and I'm feeling lazy and I gotta like cut open the packaging and shred it or cut
And
it,
he eats the whole block.
and then I see some shreddies or some slices.
Yeah.
Well, maybe, you know. So that's snack chat. That's sort of how that goes. Paige told us that last time she was here, she eats old person cookies that they serve on airplanes. And now
The
they're
Belvitas?
like, yeah, now they're like the talk of the town. People are eating them next door. It's a whole
like
thing.
diabetes
They're
management
actually really
cookies.
good. I cannot confirm because that would not go well for me, but
They're good.
They're like the Biscoff
Velveeta?
cookies, right? In the
but
plane?
are they as dry as they look?
when you breathe out, dust comes
Yeah,
out. Yeah. Yes.
So the gluten's not really active.
Devoid of gluten.
Yeah, you breathe it all out.
Yeah, you breathe it all out.
Exhale all the
All right.
gluten.
What is your snack highlight from the last 7 days? We tried to stretch that out for you.
Okay, yeah. Now I've had time to think. I don't know. I feel like I eat like the same things every day. But I mean, a couple minutes ago, I was just downing my 5-pound bag of gummy worms that I have
Okay.
on
CrossFit
hand.
Games staple.
Yeah.
Competition
Games,
staple.
training, competition. You will always catch me eating those.
What brand?
So they're from this like local grocery store called Sprouts.
Okay.
And they're,
Sounds
how,
crunchy.
like-
I know Sprouts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know how you can like,
Oh,
word?
I get the
Like,
shovel?
You're talking my
Yeah, yeah,
language
yeah, yeah.
now.
Scoopy scoop in
Yeah.
the bulk aisle.
yeah.
When you were on
Yeah.
vacation as a kid and you walked into one of those places that had that, I mean, that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
those-
38 cents per pound.
Yeah.
How many did you
Watch
how
this.
many did you sample though?
Watch
You
this.
gotta try at least 7 of everything.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's any good. I gotta try like 7 of these. Catch me in the
Yeah.
Hannaford aisle getting arrested.
I don't know, my snack check.
What do you do? You
She's a big
have
crumble cookie fan. I mean, we should talk about that. I mean, you guys have a lot of commonality there.
That's great. Yeah, that's good news. It's an
what's-
important thing to connect with.
Yeah,
but-
what's your favorite? I feel like that's an easy one.
favorite? Yeah, do you have a favorite?
Probably my favorite is the waffle one. That one is
The waffle
very
was
good.
so fucking good from a couple weeks ago.
But again,
Holy
not a waffle,
shit.
just a cookie with syrup on it.
It's like a
Yeah,
maple
yeah,
cookie.
It's
It has
a
that, like,
waffle flavored
butter.
cookie with
Yeah.
like
What kind of
a
con has
sugar
this
butter.
company pulled off? How much do these things cost?
A
Like
lot.
a little less than $5 after tax. Like
For how much?
$4.75 for one
One.
cookie. But one
One cookie's
cookie
550 calories.
No, one cookie's like 600 to 800 calories. So you're talking
Okay.
like dollars per calorie.
But
It's a
but it
highly
is
economic.
But it
an
is
economic
no,
purchase.
it's not. It's $5 for a cookie.
$5 for 800 calories.
Get it right.
Find.
He's been hanging out with Dave.
I
His
mean,
roommate's a lot into
I'm just
that.
saying when you're trying to justify the cost of
And it comes
an
in what, a
objectively
4-pack normally?
unhealthy- well, you can get them in a single, a 4-pack, a 6, 12,
38,
and like a
400.
yeah.
Is
it
the
go
4-pack $20?
No, it's like $15. It's actually
I know.
one day I went in there and I was like, I'm gonna do like 3 singles because I was like 4 is too many, but between
Three's
two people, like 3 cookies, that's manageable. And I was like, he rung it up and he was like, like a 4-pack is like 30 cents more, and I was like, God fucking damn it. So,
All right, fine.
fiscally responsible individual, so it's either 1 or 4 is kind of how it works. But yeah, the waffle one,
Addict.
that might have been in my top 3.
Wow.
Yeah.
All time?
Yeah, all time.
Amazing.
Really amazing.
What is your favorite?
My favorite? Thanks for asking, Jenna. These two jamokes never asked me anything like that.
Fell asleep 45 minutes ago.
I like the it's a birthday cake or like the cupcake one.
yeah,
I'm a
yeah.
very I like the very kind of plain traditional flavors.
That one's good.
Yeah.
Does that one have like the cream cheese frosting?
I think so. Yeah, it's either the cream cheese or like the typical like sugar frosting. It's more about the cookie for me, but yeah, that's.
Are they all sugar cookies?
No,
No.
Oh.
they're a mix.
They look like
There was
it.
a waffle cookie. Weren't you listening?
What the fuck is a waffle cookie?
What? You listening?
It's a cookie that tastes like a waffle. What do you
Right.
fucking
Yeah, but like what's the base?
And it comes with syrup, flour. what the fuck? I don't
This
know.
podcast is going great.
sick.
Weren't you fucking listening? He's talking about it for an hour.
Ted, you got anything good for us?
Bless you.
How'd the tacos go?
Tacos went well.
Yeah.
The carne asada wasn't the greatest, but it was on a time crunch, so.
Yeah.
But the tacos went well. Yeah, no, nothing. I got nothing.
I almost sent you the video this morning. You gotta check out if you haven't already seen it. Josh Wiseman did he called it the 350-hour pizza, where he's like, if you take the time to do the dough for a long time and do like the fermented sauce and make your own toppings and all that,
Yeah.
like, is it worth it?
Oh, fuck yes.
The pizza looks fucking incredible. Now I got to try. He has a fermented pizza sauce recipe
2.5
that
weeks
they're
for pizza.
basically saying is the thing. That's what made the pizza the best.
Do you have a stone? Do you have a steel, like a baking stone?
I have a stone, and I have
you have the
I have a
grill, too.
wood fired oven
Yeah.
as well.
I
one
mean,
of
I
the pizza
did make
ovens.
some pretty fucking good pizza for Paige and Ben when
Yeah?
they were up. I can't tell if I can even hear my own voice. Yeah.
We can hear you.
Yeah,
Is
we
that
can hear-
helpful?
That's incredible. We're plugged in.
But it was my normal recipe.
Yeah.
I tried a new sauce recipe that turned out really well, but
Yep.
they were good. Ben was like, have you ever had charred cup pizza? And it's when the pepperonis are small enough that they
Curl up.
and they cup up. And I was like, I don't really make it ever. And then the pizza just I cooked it hard enough that
Yeah.
it turned out like that. But yeah, it was,
There's
it was
a
top-notch.
type of pepperoni that I buy at. So I'm a pepperoni connoisseur, in case you're wondering. At Whole Foods, like in the full stick.
base?
Pork pig.
Pig base.
That if you cut right, you get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to cut it just thick enough, but not too thick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's very true.
Yeah.
That's the good stuff.
The good stuff.
Yeah,
Good stuff. All
Ready
right.
for some pizza.
CrossFit. Fitness things.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get this started, and then I'll kick it off to the gentleman here. You came to quarterfinals prep camp what would now be considered 2 years ago, basically 2 seasons ago. And I observed you in that camp. One of the things that I like to do is if someone else's remote client comes, I like to try to give them kind of a different perspective on the athlete. And my goal after watching that, when you came back up for camp this year, was to talk to you about your body language during workouts. And I didn't have to, because it was completely different. Like absolutely night and day, the way that you carried yourself through Metcons, the way that you approached different movements, whether they were going really well, not so well. Was that a conscious thing that you tried to improve on, or was it like a part of the maturation process?
Yeah. Well, thanks. Yeah, I don't think it's conscious on any means. I think it's just a lot to do with like the journey I've gone through, especially last year. I felt like I was 16, so I was on the younger end and like aging up into like the bigger girl teenage division. And I was just less confident. I was like scared I wasn't going to make it, especially they cut it down to 10. So that kind of affected me, and it was like my junior year of high school, so I was just dealing with a lot. Like I would be at the gym until 8 and I was just like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it. So I think that was a lot, and then making it, like fighting through the elbow injury that I had that year, and then just like that year at the games, then to this year at quarterfinals, that just kind of jolted me forward a lot and gave me a lot of like confidence within the training and within myself, and like knowing that even if something's going wrong, just like pushing through, and eventually it will be good.
It's funny you say that, because I actually asked her at one point if she was all right, because I was like, man, the conversations around this year's season has been so different. Like last year was like insecurity and worry, and am I keeping up? Am I fit enough? And this year I'm like, hello, are you good? Yeah, I'm fucking great. Let's go. I'm fine. And it was just a very different mindset going in. And I think that's part of it's earned confidence, but also, you know, people look at that situation the year before. So when you were the youngest in the older age group, that like, you know, you had this big disadvantage because you were younger and these other girls might be more physically mature or have more experience. And, you know, there's a lot of people who might look at that situation and be like, oh, so negative. Like you were so like, you didn't believe in yourself. A lot of doubt there. But I think it's an important stage in your growth as an athlete to go through an experience like that where you think that you don't belong, or maybe you're like, I don't know if it's going to happen. And for you to prove to yourself that you can do that despite the adversity in front of you, that, you know, you felt like you maybe didn't belong. It was cool for me to watch you push through that like barrier and have that just be like another part of the journey, even though I'm sure when you were going through that it wasn't enjoyable. Cause I remember, you know, the text messages and the phone calls, and, you know, what's unfortunate about what the timing of it was like, I think I was going on some sort of a trip around the same time. And I was like, hey, I'll be away for a little bit, but if you need anything here, you can come get a hold of me. And, you know, you reached out to me and you're like, I'm sorry to bother you again. I'm like, this is my job. Like, it's to make sure that you have that support. And it was like this year I got around and I was like, are you good? And it just felt weird that I wasn't getting the same response. And I think that's just a big nod to the amount of work you've put in and what kind of confidence that gave you, so you didn't have the same circumstance where you weren't worried about any particular movement. You're just like, if I do what I can do, like I'm going to go back to the CrossFit Games. And that seemed like the biggest change in this season versus the year before, is that like you knew you belonged this year, as opposed to last year where you're still kind of figuring out like, did I just fall backwards into qualifying for the CrossFit Games because the older girl in that age group? It's like, no, you're really freaking fit. Like, I want you to believe that. And that was the biggest change for me.
Yeah, I definitely had like imposter syndrome, especially aging up. But I feel like them cutting it down to 10 honestly really helped me. Just really like go all in and be like, I don't have almost the safety net of it being 20. Like it's only the 10 best people or teenage girls in the world. And like, it's just, you can do whatever, and you might not make it, you might make it, but all you can do is like your best basically. And then that kind of just last year showed me like, if you just trust the process and like keep working even throughout the doubts, even throughout whatever, will pay off if you like just day in, day out, keep basically just grinding through it, and working your way through it. And that, last year I think showed me a lot. It's
a pretty mature mindset. Where do you think you have got that from? Is that something from your parents? Is something from like sports growing up? Like where do you think that comes from?
I would say a mix of both. My parents definitely have like a big impact. They're definitely keep me like very grounded and just like very realistic. and always just kind of looking. It could be worse, or you could be here, you could be here. Like, just even doing Wadapalooza this year, I did on a team with 2 other teenage girls, and just having that like fun experience. They were like encouraging me to do that. They were like, what if something happens this year? What if you can't even, what if that's your last time competing like in person? What if you get injured again or something? It's just always like kind of keeping things in perspective. I think they definitely like really drive it home. And I think even just like, I think then now I try to like give that same like advice they've given me to other people. Like I remember my first year at the games, that's when I was 20 girls. I was on the older end. Like we had just finished a workout, 20 fittest teen and girls in the world, and people are like, I suck. Oh my gosh, this is terrible. I'm like, you don't suck. You're at the CrossFit Games. You can't suck at the CrossFit Games, bro. Like, what?
You're absolutely right.
Like, imagine the like girl sitting in 21st who wishes they could like suck at the games. I'm like, just keeping things kind of in perspective. I think my parents have helped me really kind of drill that in my brain.
Has there been any really rough times where your parents have been like that and you're like, shut up, I get it? Like, has that been a battle for you, or is that something you've always seen like as a, hey, I actually look at this as an advantage that I have over other people, because it really is a tremendous advantage to be able to look at a situation and look at it from a objective standpoint and not have so much a feeling attached to it, you know, being like, oh, I suck, or I'm the greatest. Like, is that something that's always been a case in your family? And is there like one of those moments where you're like, oh, I really wish they were not right, but they're right this time?
Oh no, it's a lot. Like I'm like complaining, oh sure, makes me do math over and over again and I hate it. But they're like, like I'm like want to feel those feelings, and they're just like basically just like say something like that, like keep it in perspective, like you get to do this, you don't like have to do it, basically. Like what if you were, you know, injured or whatever? I keep bringing up that scenario, but something like that.
I mean, you went through it, so that makes sense. Like you did have a period last year where, you know, you weren't certain you were going to compete after Wadapalooza, had that, you know, the elbow situation, and then you were, you know, we were working with your PT and figuring out, you know, what you were going to be able to do for this season, and like we were very worried that we weren't going to be able to be ready to compete at quarterfinals and whatnot, and you know, you stuck to your rehab and were able to bounce back from that. Obviously being young helps a bunch in terms of healing, but you know, you've gone through that situation and now you have perspective on that, so I think it's important that you are paying that forward to other people, especially
like having last year. I feel like just starting out this year, I was like kind of very precautious. Is that the correct word?
Don't worry, I make up words all the time on the podcast. You're fine. I make up words like every single podcast.
I was like, oh God, like I just felt like I expected an injury to happen again, and I feel very like lucky this whole year. I mean, knock on wood, so far that I've gone through this season injury free, and like just it's been very like almost like a breath of fresh air compared to last year, because that was pretty rough, but we got through it.
So I get the vibe that I've observed you and your dad quite a bit, and then I see sort of him in the background and a lot of like social media and stuff like that, and correct me if I'm wrong, and obviously like, you know, this is a public podcast, but I get the vibe that he is much more supportive than a lot of, I'm sure you've been around crazy sports parents. I mean, you've been to the CrossFit Games, so that's one place where that happens.
That's like crazy sports parents.
And then obviously it happens, you know, in, you know, when you're growing up and you see that. I get the almost opposite vibe from your dad. Is that am I picking up on the right thing?
That is a correct observation.
It's really cool to see, because you don't see it that often where the parent is as involved as he is without being like that. A lot of times you will have the like parents who, you know, have sort of less pressure, but then you don't really feel supported. So I think there's some sort of Goldilocks zone that your dad has found, and it's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, that my parents, my dad especially, but my brother and my mom, they've all been like my biggest supporters since day one. But my parents especially have made a big effort to like be involved, but not be like helicopter parents or like overbearing. They put like an effort into doing that. Yeah. And when I was like originally started in CrossFit, like, oh, maybe I want to, you know, be a little bit more competitive, get a coach, reach out to Misfit. We discovered that it is not good. As I feel like it's very common for teenage athletes, your parents to like almost be your coach. We discovered like day one, all right, you are not being my coach. This is not happening.
Tell us more.
Yeah.
I threatened it.
Tell us the story.
I threatened to quit Little League when I was 11 if my dad didn't go away. So yeah.
No, they've always just been like very supportive and just
They
being,
threw you
like,
on the roof.
Yeah. they've always just wanted me to just do what makes me happy, and they'll just support whatever makes me happy. So I'm definitely very lucky in that sense that I don't, because there are teenage athletes, their parents are like controlling their social media. Controlling their social media, or controlling their like what they're working out or what they're putting into their body, and
Pulling them out of school.
Yeah, like online. Oh my gosh, don't get me started. That like, I definitely don't. I am personally happy that I'm stuck in public school, or stuck with public school and didn't go online. But yeah, people are like so involved, and I think just I'm happy for the way that
the other
was
side
raised.
of that coin seems to be the expectations game. And I think they do really go hand in hand, because if you are being treated that way by a parent or a coach or some sort of, pseudo authority figure, that can already bring expectations. And then if you already feel that way, bring in social media, bring in CrossFit Games media, all that. How do you deal with the expectations side of that whole conversation? Because the topic of teen athletes is pretty hot right now, with some of the women specifically, but women and men who have aged up and just been like, I've had enough of this shit.
Yeah. Gosh. Yeah. There's a lot. I mean, like, where do I start? I don't even know.
Like, how do you feel about expectations? Do you think that there are unnecessary ones? Do you go up and down with what you expect of yourself versus what you think someone else expects of you? Like, how do you think about that?
I think for me personally, like, I'm kind of, I've been annoyed, like, oh, Morning Chalk Up never talks about me or whatever. I feel like I kind of fly under the radar a little bit, versus people like Olivia Kerstead or Mal or whoever. They're always getting talked about, and, oh, Mal's going to win, oh, this and that, and all those expectations. But I feel lucky the people that, sure, my family I surround myself with, like, there's never been like, you need to win, you need to get top whatever. Like, it's just always been like, do your best. It doesn't matter. Like, we've gone and talked to other parents, like, oh, like in other divisions that we're friends with or whatever. We're like, oh, how'd the workout go? And their parent is like, oh, she got like third. And we're like, okay, how did the workout go though? Like, and it's just all about like the placing or wherever you end up like overall. And I think the focus for me has always just been doing my best, because that's just like what I control. It's kind of like that thing Matt Frazier said a while ago about, I'm going to snatch 380 pounds or whatever. Like, I'm going to be so happy, and I could win or I could be last place. Even if you're last place, like, you're not going to be upset about like snatching 380 pounds. Like, Did that answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. I just think that, like, I mean, you sort of alluded to it a little bit, but how do you feel about that topic? I mean, you're kind of in it right now, so it's hard to know, but 2024, 25, 26, do you see yourself still trying to compete? Do you want to, go to school and figure out what that balance is? Like, where's your head at with that?
Yeah, honestly, I feel like right now I'm kind of just focused on this year's games, my last year teenage division, and then literally I get back from the games on August 7th, and like a week later I move into college. I'm going to college. I'm going to be focused on that. I'm going to do CrossFit no matter what. I'm just kind of going to, it's going to be lots of big life moments in August. So I'm just going to kind of take one moment at a time. I'm not really looking that far ahead, but
Well, it sounds like you found some level of balance with like still wanting to be like in high school and have that experience and have CrossFit. So I think that'll serve you pretty well going into school. And
we had this conversation right centering around like the fact that quarterfinals and prom were like the exact same time. Like how do semifinals and prom were at the exact same time. How do I balance that? You know, and you were talking to me about what time to do this, what time to do that. And I don't know if you got the vibe from me that I was trying to give you, but I was like, enjoy the like teenage, I'm 17, 18 years old type of stuff. Like go and do that stuff. You work really hard. I'm convinced that your work is going to be enough when you just show up and do your thing, that you should have a little bit more ease at mind that you've done the work that you need to do so that you performed at the level that you hold yourself to, but you can also go and do those things that are fun. Because, you know, you and I have talked a lot about the balance being important here because, you know, there are times where I tell you to take some weeks off and you do a really good job of that because you are super focused and dedicated when you need to be, but you also have the ability to like almost flip the switch and be like, all right, I can take a little time off.
Yeah.
And the entire world's not going to get fitter than me,
Yeah.
which I think is a big problem a lot of us CrossFitters have, myself included. As soon as you take a little bit of time off, you feel like everybody had like a 15-year head start on you and you're playing catch up. And, you know, I don't think that's the case, but that's the insecurity in our minds to make us feel that way. So I think it's really cool to hear you talk about that, because I think that in the long term, that's what's going to keep you training and performing at a high level, is the fact that you can take that switch and turn it on and off when you need to.
Yeah, definitely. Especially this year, I really have been trying, like putting an extra effort into like balance and everything. I've definitely was not like that when I first started. I've definitely learned that throughout my journey in competitive CrossFit. But yeah, especially after seeing like a lot of teenage burnout, like you said, just like expectations or whatever, trying to keep going.
Yeah.
Especially this time of year when you're like, it's games training, no days off, I'm going to go, whatever. And it's like, you got to think about like all the days that you've done already up until this point. And like I prioritized going to prom during semifinals. It wasn't like the most ideal thing ever, but like I did it. You know, I had my graduation. I went to senior week or beach week, whatever you want to call it, with my friends this year. And like I'll go to a Taylor Swift concert or just something like that. Like I really have tried
We knew we were going to get it in there eventually.
Yeah, I mean, my life compared to other teenagers is not like balanced at all, but I try to balance it for the life that I have chose to live. Yeah.
Favorite Taylor Swift song?
Oh God. Okay.
These guys got to go first.
Okay. Yeah. Let me think.
Taylor Swift. Do you know any?
I don't know any. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Unreal.
You, Drew? What do you got?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You go first there.
Exile.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Wow.
This deep cut.
Exile.
That's mine too. Yeah, that's a great one.
Oh my gosh.
Shake It, Taylor Swift. Is that
Shake It Off.
Ooh, I like that song.
Yeah.
I think that's my favorite.
That's a good one too.
Like a little disappointed in your shirt.
Ted, that's gonna be your fucking walkout song. I don't know.
Shake it off.
Out for what?
I don't know. Just the next time I see you
podcast
walking.
studio.
Yeah, next time I
Sure
see you
be Ted
walking.
WrestleMania.
Sure
Perfect.
be Ted WrestleMania.
I like that last time it happened.
Oh my gosh. I don't know if I could pick a favorite
She doesn't want to
song.
do the podcast anymore.
What's your
She's so
favorite
upset
album?
with me.
I have like a top 3 album. Reputation will always be my number 1 album. It is like the best.
How far back is that?
It was released, I want to say 2018.
Okay.
That was when like everybody thought it was cool to hate Taylor Swift, and then she like
Is that when Kanye was feuding with her?
Kanye like thought like he made her famous when like she literally made him famous, but okay.
Big Kanye fan, I can tell.
No. So yeah, the Reputation, that's just like iconic. Probably second favorite is Folklore, which is
So good.
Yep. And then third, probably like Red or Midnight's, tied for third.
Okay. I know one of
you
those
just sent
albums.
me to listen to, wasn't it?
You're just flexing
Isn't that the
hard
one?
over there with your Taylor
Came out
Swift
like-
knowledge.
About a year ago.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
recently.
yeah.
Yeah. Did you listen to it? Clearly
I did
not.
actually listen to it. I just don't remember the name of the songs. I like music, but I don't pay attention. I didn't pay attention close
Rude.
enough. Fired.
I know.
All right, Hunter, back to CrossFit. What you
Yeah,
got?
sorry.
Yeah, it's
I got a boring question related to the topic at hand. I don't think this is probably the most that like I've heard you just speak and kind of answer questions in general. So, and it's actually pretty remarkable at how secure you are and your just the way that you're answering questions. And I'm wondering like what advice you might have for a young teenager, maybe even a teenage girl in particular, just being like you doing what you are doing at the time in your life that you're doing it is like all of us have experienced like the sports, you know, being a kid doing sports. I would say like girls have different challenges as well, and going through like that period in your life where it's like these things are important. Like my social circle is important, going to prom, experiencing all the things that you want to as a young woman.
Yes.
Mm.
And then, but also balancing like having a challenging and a kind of an inspiring goal for people. How do you communicate to a teenage girl who might not be as secure in like it's okay that I take time off, or it's okay that I can balance both of these things? Like how that's you I don't know if you're an anomaly, but you might be.
Yeah. Is this like a CrossFit team?
Sure, yeah. Take it however you want.
Okay.
Like I think like the things that we experience in CrossFit extrapolate to outside the gym and life in general. So however you want to take the question, feel free. But
I love this question.
Excellent. Great.
I think I have a couple different things that have definitely helped me throughout the years, like get to this point, because just talking about last year, I was like, had the most imposter syndrome ever. I think a lot of it is like comparison is the thief of joy, like only comparing yourself to yourself, or like your PRs to your PRs, or just trying to honestly really focusing on yourself is like so much, like it's a big part, especially being a teenage athlete, being a teenager in general, especially like this new generation, constantly on your phone, on Instagram, you're scrolling like between back squat sets and you're seeing, oh, somebody's doing a 5x5 heavier than me.
Don't get me fired up.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't do that.
No, get him fired up. Make the podcast even better. Let's go. Get him fired up.
He's harmless. He'll be fine.
So I think just not comparing yourself to others, especially on Instagram, because it's just so fake. Even my Instagram, like nobody's really posting highlight reels. Like I'm gonna post my cool like complex because it's fun to look at. Like I'm not gonna post my boring C2 bike intervals.
It's really funny as I sent you the clip of you practicing your crossover double. You probably didn't see it on your phone yet, but I sent it to you and it's mostly tripping. But that's real life. That's what the experience is. And you may not choose to post that, but like that is how you turn into the CrossFit Games athlete, is that you have the moments of vulnerability where we are literally next door doing 8 minutes of rowing and then, all right, see what you can do with crossover double unders. And you've done literally 0 of them in a workout before. You've tried them a couple times before, like just outside of Metcons. Let's see what happens. And while you might not choose to post that video is the first step in the journey towards you being able to do something that other people can't doing it. It's because you're willing at first to just try.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, kind of adding on like the comparison thing, but also just like kind of seeking out failure. Like that's just really the way that you grow in any sport. I feel like when I was super young in CrossFit, well, not super young, I was like 14 or something, but I guess that's young. I don't know. Anyways, I would like be so embarrassed. Like I would not go and try to attempt any ring muscle ups because I'm like, everybody's just going to watch me fail and I'm so embarrassed and I just can't do it. Like my ego, I just can't take it. But, my dad, he would just be like, come on, let's just do it. Nobody's watching you. Nobody cares about you. Everybody's just kind of focused on themselves, which I've now realized is just so true. Especially like going to college, you just think about everybody's like opinions. Oh, should I wear this? Whatever. Nobody cares. Everybody's focused on themselves. Anyways, so yeah, I think just like trying new things and just failing and then eventually getting that. I think that's one of the things I really like about CrossFit, just constantly like just the process of it all. I think like I've said this a while ago, but I would feel like I would still be doing this even if there wasn't the games. Like I feel like my one goal in CrossFit was never just for the CrossFit Games. It was just because I loved it. And I think that's also something that's kind of helped me like stay in the sport and not deal with anything like burnout that a lot of teenage athletes deal with, because I think a lot of people like just only train for the fun moments at the games or only train for the games. I'm like, that you cannot sustain that all year, because it's just there's the games once a year for like 3 days or however many for elite individuals, but teenagers 3. And I think you have the whole entire year of just really grinding out. You gotta, okay, whatever, I'm ranting. Anyways.
I do it all the time. You're fine.
Okay, great. So yeah. Also kind of like what you said, just like surrounding yourself with good people, especially in high school. Like, I've gone through different social groups and kind of figured out like which friends really support me or support my goals, and my family and my coach, like, and just like my nutritionist at M2, like just the people that help me succeed and just like help me reach my goals. I think just the people around you, it's kind of like, I don't know if you guys read David Goggins, but I'm kind of obsessed with him. And his most recent book, he was talking about like the foxhole or something. He called it something like that. There's like the people that are like in your corner in the like ring, basically. And I think that's just, it really spoke to me, But yeah, I think that, and just kind of trusting the process. I mean, I keep saying that over and over again, but it's just like continuing to.
Yeah, it's really difficult too, because one of the things that I told you is what your goals for the season should be, at least in my opinion, was I wanted you to push yourself to the point where you weren't always super cerebral with how you attacked a workout and said, let's see if it happens if I set myself on fire in round 1 and see what happens. Like, I told you to do that more often because I see you as someone who really is well developed in your athlete IQ. You really know how long things will take, how you plan on breaking them, what the transitions will look like, and you're obviously a very good mover. Otherwise, you wouldn't be at the CrossFit Games. So one of the things I really wanted you to try to push is go places that you don't normally go, so that when you go to the CrossFit Games, it's not an unknown.
Yeah.
And I still think a lot of people struggle with that concept. There's always that that ego self-preservation mechanism, like you were talking about, not attempting ring muscle ups. If you don't go there in training, don't expect to have anything sort of extra gear when you go to the CrossFit Games. The best in the sport try to push themselves to that limit, knowing that if they do that in training, it's not a guess when they go to the CrossFit Games. I actually had a really good conversation recently with Alexis and Shaylin talking about this exact concept. Like, push yourself to the point where you are going to fail and you are going to blow up and you are going to make your team stand around, or in your case, make yourself stand around. Because if you don't do that in training, you don't know what that line is. Then you go to a competition where you might go further than you've been asked to go further than you ever have before, and you won't know if you can. So you're probably going to hold some in the tank, and that extra whatever 10% you held in the tank because you were a little nervous could have propelled you to take 100 or 95 points instead of 40 points.
Yeah.
The year that you came in 9th in the qualifier, was that when it was top 20?
That was when it was top 10.
Yeah.
That was last year.
Yeah.
That was okay.
Yeah.
You just talking about the ability to look at the top 20 versus the top 10 and push yourself to a different place, I think is part of what he's talking about. But then you get the proof when you actually go in and do that. I think that's so important. Yes. I do want to go back a little bit and just say that another sort of outside looking in thing. The only thing, I mean, I've been doing this now for 14 years. The only thing that really impresses me is effort and attitude. And you could say patience, but I feel like that's part of the attitude arena. You have a good attitude, you give solid effort, but you also have people in your corner, whether it was by design or not, who are also impressed by that. And when you coach an athlete that wavers on effort and has a shitty attitude, and then they do well in a competition every once in a while, it doesn't have you don't feel the same way as a coach as part of the support system. So for people listening that struggle with this, you either need to reevaluate your foxhole or you need to set standards for other people. You need to go in those moments and say, that was absolutely everything that I had. And even though you're pissed off, I'm going to stay positive about this, but just so you know, I can give you what I can give you, and that's where it was there. And if you can either set that standard with people, get them to reevaluate on their own, or change up that foxhole a little bit, I think that's when the coach can stay really invested. The athlete can continue to do that. And you have the moments where you go in the wrong directions for a little bit, and at least 50+% of the foxhole will still be able to come in and say attitude and effort, keep trying, keep your head up, that sort of thing. Because at the end of the day, these other things, these placings in a competition, or whether someone has, I hate the word potential so much. It's just like if they could, they would, and they didn't, so they don't. I really do think about that. Well, they have the potential, and it's well, the attribute that they're missing is part of their potential, and they don't have it. So
do they?
What are we talking about? Should always go back to those Madden sliders. It's no, I don't think so. I don't think someone has the potential if they can't do the work. That doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Yeah, that's a weird. It's you have to try to make it like a food item. You don't have all the ingredients. It's it's not the food item anymore.
It's like an engine in the car and no gas pedal.
Yeah, what the
Good luck with that.
What you were just saying just reminded me. I remember my first year at the games. I mean, it's it's new. I'm gonna make mistakes. Nobody has a clean run at the games. But I just remember walking away from that year, my 15-year-old year, and I placed well. I was proud, but I was I just feel like I had so many things I could have done differently, or regrets almost, and they would just keep me up at night. I'm like, geez. And then last year I was I'm just going to take one event by one event and just do my best in every event. And that was exactly what I needed to do. And having that experience, now I sleep great at night. Don't have anything weighing over my head, but just having that experience of okay, this is what works. This is what doesn't work, at least for me.
Yeah.
And like, because some people, maybe it works to use the last event and really fuel them into the next one. They're so mad.
Yeah.
But not for me personally. But yeah, that just reminded me of that. So.
Yeah, I think the positive fuel burns a little bit more smooth if you can stay in that headspace. The issue with trying to teach this as a coach is you run into a lot of athletes that have I think a shared collective pet peeve of, I'm going to run my own race. And it's like, well, that like hanging back and not trying as hard as you can is an effort, right? Mm-hmm. But then the, way too far in the opposite direction of, we know a lot of athletes with, a hell of a motor that go out there and just burn themselves out within the first X amount of minutes on the competition floor, and they wonder what the hell's going on. So there's definitely some sort of middle ground there, but to have the like fierce mentality of, I am going to give it everything that I have, but then that's the only expectation that you set for yourself, I think is pretty unique.
Yeah, we definitely had conversations around the fact that you have to know at least a little bit about where you are in the competition. That was something we spent last year doing. Like, running your own race, when you're training and you're focusing on things that you need to be focused on, that's a great mentality to have. Like, I'm going to focus on pushing the rower here because I'm great at muscle ups. Or I'm going to break up the barbell because I'm good at the gymnastics. Like, you run your own race in training. That's a valuable trait to have. You need to be able to understand that is a part of making you the fittest version you are. But when you go to a competition, you are literally racing.
No, people. It's a race. Yeah.
You are
it's an
literally
race.
racing now. So only thing that matters in the competition world is who's first, who's second, who's third. So you have to know where people are relative to you and understanding how to use that environment and that situation to recognize when there are points to be gained, or where there are places to be made up, or where points where you're going to have to go to that extra 10% you avoid on a lot of your training because you're worried about people making fun of you and for looking silly and blowing up in round 2 of the 3-round workout. Like, that happens in training so that when you go to a competition, you can pay attention to the people around you and go, all right, like, if I pick up my jump rope faster, it's 100 double unders. I know we have a minute left. If I can grit out 1 minute faster, or I can stay tough for one more minute and they can't do it, I win this round, and I win, I take second place instead of fourth place. That matters across an entire weekend. So we spent a good amount of the CrossFit Games last year talking about, like, while you can't be obsessed with only your placing in every single event, like, you need to be aware of where people are. So if there's an opportunity for you to pick up the sandbag and run across the finish line a little bit faster and gain 15 points with only 10 people in the field, there's 10 points separating all the places. Like, you can make a huge leap in only one event if they fall a couple places behind you. So it's important to recognize that nothing is like black or white all the time. Like, you need to live somewhere in the gray, and like in the competition space, it's important to have worked hard enough in training that you can go into a competition and, try your best, but you're racing. You have to have that mentality of, we're competing now at the competition. And if that's not necessarily for you, because we hear a lot of competitors who love the day-to-day grind of training, but then competition comes around and it's, I'm going to run my own race. And unfortunately, it's like, that tells me right from the jump that, like, maybe competition's not your bag.
Yeah. Just taking like each event like by one and just like literally like doing your best in each one. Like, I remember last year, I was making an effort not to look at the leaderboard because it was like kind of getting my head a little bit last year, but I was just like, I wasn't in the best spot all weekend until like the last event basically. And then I was like going between 7th and 9th the whole entire weekend until the last event. I just sent it. I was
hammered
like,
it.
This is my workout, guys.
Yeah, you hammered that.
Finally. And then I ended in 5th. But I'm like, it's just, I feel like something like that can like get in your head. And I think there's points when it is good to look in, and sometimes it's good to just do your best.
Well, it's also good that you recognize that you maybe weren't where you wanted to be in up to that point. And like you said, you don't always use the workouts you've done already to be like fuel for the next one. But like, you saw as an opportunity of like, hey, I can steal a bunch of points here. This is a time domain and the kind of workout I am very, very good at, and I'm very fit. So let's see what happens if I go for it and you went for it. Is it second in that? Yeah. So like, and that's the kind of performance I wouldn't say I expect from you, but I know you can do. I don't like the word expectations because I think that can often have a negative connotation to it, but like, I knew that's what you're capable of. So for me to see you end on a high note, I'm like, that is the ramp we need going off into the next season. Obviously we have some time off afterwards, but it's a really good thing for you to realize like, hey, I'm the young girl in this age group. I took second place against this entire field. Let's run this back next year and see what happens.
You can watch the time lapse art on Instagram, and the whole time you're like, what the fuck is this? And then they show you at the end and you're like, damn, that's awesome. That's how I feel about CrossFit competitions. You do not get to choose what the order is. And so many athletes need for their psyche to be front running. And it's like, what if the absolute worst workout of the whole weekend for you in terms of your skill set and your energy systems is event 1 or event 2 or event 3? How are you going to navigate that? And trying to get athletes to understand that can be really challenging. And it's why, you know, we used to call it the Spencer Hendel rule. He'd wait till day 6 of the CrossFit Games to come in first in every event the whole day and then climb from 39th to 9th. And it's like, hey, you keep showing up, you keep doing your thing. I mean, sometimes athletes just do handle volume better, so they're sort of ready. You know, it's no different than, you know, a coach screaming like, you're doing your running now because the fourth quarter they won't be able to keep up with you, like that sort of thing. You know what I mean? So being able to continue to bring it over and over and over, you need to have that kind of mentality.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the body language thing. We skipped over that a little bit. One of the movements that you made a big change on was wall balls.
Okay.
Very, very, very sad 2 times that I saw you doing wall balls,
God.
like really upset.
Oh God.
And then the next time I saw you doing wall balls, you didn't seem to care at all. Again, I asked before if it was conscious. When you have a movement that's like that, and for the listener, I'm obsessed with body language because athletes tell themselves ridiculous stories about certain movements. And it's like, no, it's still just your strength and your endurance and whatever. Like the joke is always, you're great at front squats, you're great at push press and burpees and stuff, and you hate thrusters. Shut up. No, you don't. So when you have a movement like that, that seems to feel different and sort of feel like out of place, is that something where you go in and you start doing weakness work, where you try to break it up more thoughtfully within the workout? Like, how do you think you made it from the point A to the point B that I'm talking about? And you can pick a different movement if you want, but there was clearly not these, anything else. And at the end of the day, can you squat? Do you have the, you know, balance of your energy systems? All that. The answer is yes.
Yeah.
So how did you get better at it?
You can make it rowing too if you wanted.
Yeah, I feel like rowing is a lot more. I still kind of dislike rowing, but I've gotten better. But I mean, I think it just has to do a lot with it's kind of boring answer, but it's like doing it over and over and over again until you don't feel that way anymore.
Yeah, exposure is the answer to that, and a lot of times.
Yeah, for wall balls, like finding for this type of workout, it's just like the training, like this type of workout I can do a bigger set, or this kind of workout I can just do sets of 10 and keep moving, and just kind of finding that balance. Or it's like heavy and high wall balls, now I do this, and just kind of the training and like pushing it here and seeing what happens, or like kind of gaming it to like get the best score I could. But yeah, for rowing, that's just been one of my least favorite movements.
Well, I just think what you said is really important here, because sometimes you'll go in with the approach of like, I'm gonna set myself on fire and it's okay if I blow up, and like that's a training stimulus that's important to know. And there's other times where you have the opportunity, it's like, all right, this is like 100 wall balls in the middle of a 20-minute workout, like if I do 10 sets of 10, it's not a big deal. So leaning into your athlete IQ and realizing when it makes sense to do that and when it makes sense not to do that is an important thing. And I think that you experimenting with different styles and different approaches is an important thing for people to do within their own training if they don't have a coach, or if they do have a coach, is to have those situations where you put yourself up against a style that maybe you haven't done before, and that kind of keeps it fresh and gives you more information. Because, you know, the one thing I told you that I thought was really impressive after this season was how much your athlete IQ has grown. You know paces, you know how you break things up, you know how things are going, and you almost to a fault where it's like, all right, you know so much about yourself and your workouts that like I need you to like try to sabotage yourself every once in a while. And I think that your willingness to do that is one of the big things here, is that you just said, you know I don't like rowing, I don't like wall balls, but if I want to get better at this thing, I can't avoid it. Like even today, I talked to you about that when we were doing the crossover double unders. Like before today, how many crossover double unders have you successfully completed, you think?
0.
How many did you do today?
I don't know.
75. She did 75.
Slay.
But the idea here was, you know, I took a piece that had other movements in it that you were really good at, and I said, Eric, we're going to spend most of this session just trying to figure out how to get more comfortable with the jump rope, because you are very, very good at double unders, very good at them. It makes no sense you can't do crossover single unders and as big a sets as you can double unders, and it also doesn't make any sense with how good you are at a jump rope that you haven't figured out the crossover single unders. And instead of being like, ugh, fucking crossover single unders, I got to do all this rowing and skiing and crossover, like you just said, cool, let's do it. had a great attitude to it, and you went forth, and by the end of the session, you were able to rip off like sets of like 6 to 10 crossover double unders. Now, they weren't in a row yet, but that's an important thing for people to realize, is that you don't just go from 0 to 100 all at once. You go from 0 to 1, and then 1 to 2, then 2 to 4, then 4 to 5. Like, you make small incremental growth points. Like, the work you put in today, I'm sure in 2 weeks from now, I'll get a text message from you if you ripping off like 30 in a row. And that's just how it actually goes. But you see social media and you think it's a snap of the fingers and she just has them because she's a CrossFit Games athlete. It's just not the case at all.
And I just want to say, I do credit a lot of my like athlete IQ success to you and just to Miss. I know you're like,
do that.
Okay, sorry, don't credit their success, but I like, I feel like I would.
Sherb needs a W every once in a while. You can give it to him.
Sherb is always like, oh, I just say words and you do all of it. But like, I don't think I would be where I was without you, without like Misfit. And you're always like, push me to be like, oh, it's like, sometimes it's so annoying. I'm like, just tell
That's
me
what
what
you need to tell them.
pace
Tell them
I should do.
this.
Sher's like, well, what do you think? How long can you, what is this? What is your 5K? What do you think for this? And it's just like, definitely has encouraged my brain to like, think about it, and I don't think I would be like that on my own. So I just wanted to say that.
Well, the athletes that you do that for don't end up with the athlete IQ, and you go to the CrossFit Games and sometimes they're just like, hey, you're doing this
Chaos
in 4 seconds. Well, yeah, I mean,
Could be, as an example, like knowing.
but sort of, they didn't know when they were going to stop. So that's also tough.
True.
But like, I think it's super important to have that. And we always talk about the 50-50 agreement. That's where we get to give you a compliment as well. It's like, if you don't meet us there to make those decisions together and work through it, what we're doing is essentially, blabbing into a microphone, words in a spreadsheet, that sort of thing. Like, the athlete has to come to that point, and we will always meet them there. But there are a lot of athletes that want it to be 60-40, 70-30, 80-20, 90-10, some of them 99-1 as far as I can tell. Where it's just like, oh no, I mean, like they just think that if they sign up for this website, then I'm good to go. And it's like, wow, no, you got a lot of work to do no matter what website you go to.
Just need a new driver and I will be able to hit the golf ball straight. $400, that's all I need.
Why does the ball spin off the driver and not off the iron? Does the faces bigger?
I think it's
how you hit the ball.
I think it's the length of the club. Just like a driver is like super fucking long, guy. It's real long. Just the angle. I think the swing arc is different. The way that you strike a ball with a driver is different than the iron. But yeah, this is golf. I've been getting into it.
Look at my socks.
All right, here we go.
I wasn't understanding the reference.
Look at my socks.
Nobody wants to
They
hear
say
that.
golf.
But I have a question. I have a question that's going to go back to kind of my first question, because I'm just super fascinated by your confidence. So this is a sensitive topic for a lot of CrossFitters, regardless of age, but I think you're well suited to answer this. CrossFit has the unique ability to teach everybody the value of like what their bodies are capable of doing rather than physical appearance. Mm-hmm. Was there ever a point where, like, as again, kind of a younger teenage girl, where you had insecurities about the result of all of the hard work that you're doing in the gym, changing you in such a way that's like, maybe this isn't what, quote, society deems as like normal, which is, in this group is bullshit. We all know what the value of people working hard, regardless of, whatever. And we even get people across the way come in, speaking specifically to women about like, oh, I don't want to lift heavy because I don't want to get bulky. I don't want to, you kind of know where that's going. What do you say to the young teenage girl who might be like, wow, what that girl Jenna Michelotti's doing is remarkable, but I'm kind of nervous about this because of every reason under the sun, which is perfectly acceptable and normal. And then even like, even grown women who come in and they're just like, you know what, I'm nervous about this X, Y, or Z. What's like, do you have any experience with that? Like, what do you say to that sort of thing?
I mean, I would be lying if I said I was never like a little insecure about, you know, just the way that I was looking compared to like the other people in my class or whatever.
Sure.
But I think I have been lucky once again in the way that like I've grown up. Like I was in gymnastics for a while. And, you know, you're doing all these push-ups and you're trying to beat the boys and, you know, you're a little bit like stronger as a 5th grader or something. So I think having that background helped me. And then also like starting CrossFit young, I was like 13 or I want to say. So just kind of growing up in that environment and having like strong role models in my life that like especially women like showing me that it is cool to be strong and not skinny. That's so cliche, but it's like kind of true.
Sure, it's definitely true.
Yeah. And I think just having like role models kind of lead the way for me like at my gym. And I just think the little girl that like originally came into my gym, I was just a very shy person. I was more to myself. I wouldn't like raise my hand in class or whatever. And I think just like I always encourage my friends or whatever to not start CrossFit or just do CrossFit or go to your Planet Fitness or whatever you're into and just do that because it's a very empowering feeling to like, at least for me, to like just do something hard and fail and then get it and now can do something. Like I just think the idea of I can snatch this much, then I can like go out and talk in a group of like well-respected people, and I think it's just definitely helped with my confidence. And I'm always talking about, I can't believe more just like normal teenagers aren't doing CrossFit just like for fun or for their sport or whatever. But yeah, I think just having people that's kind of led the way for me is cool. It's definitely sometimes hard to get used to. Like at this point, I'm used to the way that my body looks and I like the way that my body looks. That sounds weird. But you know, I've worked with Mike from M2 and he's always like drove home just like you eat for performance, not for like aesthetics. Yeah. At least for my goals. And I think that's just always been like, okay, cool. Like, sounds great. Let's do it. But I mean, just even at like my senior week, like there was I was like playing spike ball with my friends and guys would come up to me out of nowhere and they would just be like, hey, what's your bench? And I'd be like, are you serious right now?
Just say more than yours and walk away.
I'm like, all right, okay, like, don't even ask my name. All right. No, I'm just kidding. But people would just like be on the stream, be like, oh my gosh, she looks like she could fight me. I'm like, I do not know how to throw a punch, but okay, I'll take it as a compliment.
Should have swung at him right there. Just swing immediately. No.
No, yeah. But I mean, there's just little comments there, but I think like, I take it more as a compliment now. I think when I was younger, if I was to receive that, I would have maybe been a little bit more insecure. But I think growing up in a CrossFit gym, basically, I feel like I've had a lot of my like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like crucial teenage years when you're facing a lot of awkwardness or you're just going through puberty or whatever. I've had that in a CrossFit gym, which is unique. So I've had the experience of like, just being in a place that is promoting like
you have a community where that's normal. That's considered status quo. Is like it's important to go to a place to take care of your body, and that everybody in this environment is there to better themselves. And like the way you look at it is now, it's like I'm here to better myself, and this community realizes that like that's what I'm here for. And while the outside community might not, you're doing the exact right thing. I would say is that you go out in there and you say, hey, I'll come take a class with me. I'll show you what it's about. And then people who are actually genuinely curious will join you, and people who aren't, you know, they have their opinions, but like just like anything else in the world, you're not going to get along with every single person. And the people that choose to not be the win at your back instead of win and rather be win at your face, you just go, all right, I'm not going to deal with that. Like you do your own thing and I'll do mine thing because I have a community where that's important. And, you know, I think that's a really important point for people who might be on the fence to try this stuff is like, you know, if you don't feel like you have the right community, like you might want to change your foxhole or change the community that's around you to people who are supportive of your goals. And, you know, if you are willing to put yourself out there and find that community, you will find that community. It might not happen instantaneously. Like, you walk around your high school and hey, who wants to go, deadlift with me? Probably don't get very many, takers. Yeah. But within the CrossFit gym, half the room would put their hands up, if not the entire room, because that's an environment where like that is considered a supportive community for you. And like, I think that's a really important part of just what Hunter alluded to earlier, where like CrossFit gyms are like small bubbles of where you learn like real life lessons that can be taken outside the gym. Like that's a really important thing now, that as a 17-year-old female, that you currently realize that like this thing is going to make me so much healthier and happier throughout my entire lifespan, and that I'm not just doing this for the sport, but I'm doing it because I really enjoy it. That's going to set you up for so much I don't know if smoothness is the right word, but like a much easier maturing into like a full womanhood and into adulthood, because you are strong, you are capable, you won't need other people's help because you take care of yourself currently. And it's a huge leg up and an advantage on the average person who looks at exercise and it's like, that's not really my thing.
Yeah. And even just like, kind of just growing up in my gym, like I feel like a CrossFit community is so unique in the fact, like just different from like a Planet Fitness, because everybody's so like encouraging, like you said, and I was very shy and everybody's very outgoing, and I'm like, oh, this is new, but like it's just very welcoming feeling. And so now like I coach at my gym, I have my L1, and now to like almost be that person for other people that are coming in and maybe like don't know, I'm like, it's very rewarding to now have.
Well, and like how many of like the important lessons that you've just like over the last hour have talked about, things about being more confident, learning that like, oh, if I work at something and I get better at it, learning that like, hey, I need to, be able to let things go, not let something like resentment or just bitterness or disappointment like fester, and learning to be a confident person. And like how many of those areas get carried over into real life, whereas, a lot of young people today are super trapped, whether it's intentionally or otherwise, through the internet, through social media and scrolling and whatnot, and they're kind of almost retract themselves from society. And you're out there, you're very much in like present with these people in this community, and oh, by the way, you've picked up on like, I don't know, like 98% of the life lessons we try to get people to take out of a CrossFit gym. And as a 17-year-old woman now getting to inspire other athletes of all ages and everything. So it's like, fuck.
You learn a lot. You learn a lot. I always say over there, but in the CrossFit gym, like easier said than done, but it's never your fault that someone else is insecure enough to say something to you that has to do with something like that. And then the other thing that pops into my mind, and I have sort of a different personal interpretation of this, but the trick that's being played on you is, okay, this is the way that I look, and I feel this way about it when I'm maybe at school, but then I feel the exact opposite way when I go to the CrossFit Games, and I'm like, why am I not more jacked? No, like that sort of thing. And it's like, if that's the case, if you can swim in the headspace of wanting your body to look 19 different ways, depending on where you're at, that's when realizing that the other people that make comments are insecure, or comparison is the thief of joy. Yeah. Like, go next door and, Ryan and Sherb are over there, showing each other their six packs, and they're talking about how fat they both are.
Ryan and I would do. Come on.
They're like, oh my God, I had a s'more this weekend. I'm so fat. And I'm just like, okay, I'm never taking my shirt off again. And then I go on a family vacation and I'm like Mr. Olympia in the corner, like, hell yeah, like check this shit out. And if you can feel in the exact same body both of those ways, then it's like, I got to figure out what I want for myself and then be secure with that.
Exactly.
Well, it's funny. I'm thinking about your shirt, and I remember you giving a camp talk. This must have been 17, 18. We were down in Texas, and you were talking about going for one of your like math runs. We didn't call it math then. We just said, one of our long runs. Yeah. And you were like, I realized when I was on the run, if I was running in this direction, I loved it. It was easy. The wind was at my back. I had a slight downhill. That was really the only change. I ran the exact same pace.
Came on.
Then I turned around and I ran up maybe 1 degree higher, and the wind was now in my face, and I was like, I can't fucking do this. This is impossible. And it's just like, you realize in those moments that like your mind has so much power over your ability to keep going, that if you can just tell your mind when it's difficult, like, shut the fuck up, we're going to be okay. And then when it's feeling good, like, hey, this is fine, but like, don't rely on this. Live somewhere in the middle more often. Like, is an important realization to make, that you don't have to like attach all this negative emotion on one side and all this positive emotion on one side, but essentially figure out like you are in control of that. And that's super empowering when you realize that you have the power to control whether or not something feels really good, or if you're like, this is some adversity and I can't do this.
Yeah.
Well, part of that too is the negativity that's always creeping into your head and not thinking about, like the metaphor for me was not noticing in life when I am going downhill and there is a wind at my back. That was my like status quo in that workout. I didn't think that I was running faster or that it was easier. The only thing that was different for me was the negativity. So it's like, where in my life am I being helped? Where do I have the downhill? Where do I have the momentum? Can I also focus on that to even out like life is hard, training is hard, all these different things. If you stay in that mindset and don't notice, like the wind is at your back and you have a slight decline quite like often
More
in
often
life.
you think,
Yeah. Very true.
Yeah, and it's just been nice, like, even in my high school, like, there are comments like that. Now I take it as a compliment, but, like, I think it's been cool. I mean, where I live, it's very, I don't know.
Affluent?
Yeah, or, like, people are always, I don't want to, like, say woke, but
Progressive.
people are, like,
Progressive.
Yeah. So people are just, like, it's very, progressive, and it's been, like, cool for me to see, like, girls reach out to me, be like, hey, can you like watch me do this back squat and see
That's
if
super
this
cool.
or like, oh my gosh, like what protein powder do you use or something like that, and just like see a lot of girls in my high school.
Proper Fuel.
Yeah.
Properfuel.co. Use the code.
Sure, wondering.
First or in all orders.
Just like see that almost like change, and I feel like I just feel so cool about myself because I'm like, I feel like I've been part of this change. I just think people have maybe seen me like stick with it even throughout. It's been a little unique, and I've faced challenges or whatever. But I think they're like, oh, maybe I want to try that too. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it.
What's cool too that I hear is that you're like now trying to help other propel them forward. You're being the wind at their back instead of the wind in their face. Like, don't worry about it. You're never gonna get here. Like that's just not gonna happen.
I mean, that is part of it. When people are worried about people get so worried about being jacked. It's like, I have seen you exercise. Good luck with that.
You are in no danger of
yeah. You
doing that.
The 15-pound bar. It's tough to get jacked with the 15-pound barbell. I'm just gonna
it's nice and soft in your hands, guy. It's nice.
Hey, I use
the old YMCA.
It's fine. All right. To wrap up the episode, we always do final thoughts. It's essentially like a conclusion, something that was pulled out of you during this podcast, a highlight of the podcast, that sort of thing. Sherb likes to go first, so we're going to start with him.
I love
Sherb,
you go
I'll go first if you're
final
not
thoughts.
No, I'll just I think like I'm gonna re-listen to the podcast. I might listen to my second or third Misfit Athletics podcast. I think a great takeaway is like the topics that I was kind of interested in talking to you about were the less about the CrossFit Games stuff, and I think it's really cool and really inspiring that you have kind of drawn this little map as far as going from somebody who, has never stepped into a CrossFit gym and kind of the journey through that all the way to CrossFit Games. And we have, a couple athletes at the gym who experience that as well, but as, adults. And I think it's so valuable for listeners to kind of hear this perspective from, like, again, 17-year-old woman, this isn't a, you're not a 30-year-old who's been at the CrossFit Games 10 times and, you just have different life experience, but are exemplifying a lot of the qualities that we want from athletes as like mature, competent, confident human beings. So, I'm going to listen to the podcast and take some notes.
Good boy.
Could use it.
I think what's really cool from the episode is you talking about the ability to recognize the work that you've already done and how few athletes that I've ever worked with can see that. Meaning they're always worried about what's left to be done. There's always more in front of them. There's always a gap to catch up to. I'm behind, and not realizing all of the work that's been in the rearview mirror and how much that plays into their fitness. with athletes I work with, there's usually a Super Bowl, whether that's the Open, quarterfinals, semifinals, or the CrossFit Games. And when they get to that stage in the competition, maybe they don't meet their goal for the season, or maybe they met it, but then all of a sudden, the second they met their goal, the goal jumped forward like 2 years in like one weekend. They want to get back to training as fast as possible. And my job is to like slow things down. Let's take a little break. Let your body heal. Let's refocus your mind. Let's take a time away from it, because if you're always in it, you're never in it, kind of thing. So I think it's important for other people to give themselves the time that you gave yourself occasionally from time to time, whether that's after the competition at the CrossFit Games, or, you know, it's about to be beach week at my school and I would really like to participate in this. And I know that I've done enough work up to this point that even though this is in the middle of my season, I will be okay.
You only have 10,021,509s left.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. You can go to beach week. So I guess my big take home here is that you should every once in a while remember all of the work that you've put in and use that as an opportunity to give yourself a break when needed, because if you're always in it, you just can't always be performing at 100%. And those are the athletes that, you know, you say, oh, I love training, but I don't like competing. And they have this big goal of being a competitor. It's like, well, it's because you are constantly competing every single day at the gym and you never go back and go, all right, I put a lot of good work in today and that's enough for today. I just think that's a really mature mindset for you to realize that, like, I don't get text from you. Can I do 3 more things? And I have other athletes who don't usually text me and tell me they want to do that. They've already done that. And they're like, hey, actually, I've already done these 3 things this week. What am I doing tomorrow? And it's like, you can't fit a year's worth of training into 1 week or 1 day or 1 phase.
I have a very new and, I don't know, important, big, short, long, I don't know, lens to view life through right now. I have a 2-month-old son. And that's the parenting thing has been on my mind for the last like 2 years or so in a much more intense way. So that's part of the reason why I have observed you and your dad the way that I have. And I just like, I have to put it out there. People listening to this, there's probably going to be some parents, some kids, some people that want to have kids. Your ability to not project your own personal insecurities onto your child and try to force them to be this specific version of you that you weren't, or that someone else expected you to be, is so extremely important. And honestly, I can't think of a better example like from anybody than I have observed with you and your dad. And that's really fucking cool. So shout out to Steve. Shout out to Steve
and Kim.
And for you personally to have, again, the maturity that we've talked about in this, to accept that, because a lot of times you see parents trying pretty hard, or at least publicly trying pretty hard to do that. And the kid's like, you're annoying, like go away, that sort of thing. So, to me, that's something that I have observed, and part of me feels like I was projecting a little bit, but you did confirm that it actually was real. And I can't think of anything more important than that. And that includes, you know, we're about to head to the CrossFit Games, the stuff outside, the stuff that we learn and experience, you know, mixed in with all of this, I think is the really important stuff.
My turn.
Yeah.
Your turn.
Well, I just want to say, like, I just think it just means a lot to me, more than you guys know, of all you guys just like saying this, because I mean, I like look up to you guys. Like, I remember when I was first applying to be remote athlete, I was like watching the podcast. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're so cool, and they're just like,
Yes.
they just know everything.
Hey, good job,
like,
it worked.
Now she's like, I gotta get out of here. This
Bye.
I
fucking
gotta
nerds.
go.
That was past tense. I thought you guys were so cool.
No, but actually, like, it just means a lot to me, so I appreciate you guys saying that. But yeah, I just think, like, I think this year's in like particular, I just tried to really like take it all in a little bit more. It's like my last teenage year, so it's just like more meaningful, and it's gonna be my last year at my home gym that I've like grown up at. So I just really have tried this year to like take it more in, and this like winter track session sucks in the rain, but like this will probably be my last one ever, like at my high school gym. So yeah, just trying to like take it in, and I just appreciate you guys asking me to come on, and you guys need to become Swifties.
Yeah.
I became a Swiftie,
like
I believe, 1 or 2,
3.
whenever Folklore came out.
So it was like 2020.
My wife was like, "You're gonna like this," and I was like, "That's funny. I don't think so." And then we were on vacation, and like at a campfire, so like kind of the perfect thing. And you know, there's a song where she said cardigan 100 times in a row, and I was confused about what was going on there.
Oh my gosh.
But that I have the vinyl. That legitimately is a very good album.
Yes. You guys know Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think to achieve self-actualization, you need to be a Swiftie.
Guys,
Did you get indoctrinated in Scientology?
I think
the two people over here that have it figured out, and the two people that need to get it together.
I can give you some
Me and
songs
Ron,
to
I do need to
listen
get together. I can't argue that.
No, my friends from home, they've been working out with me. Shout out Grace and Chris. My friend Grace, she was like the typical, oh, Taylor Swift only writes about like her breakups, whatever. And she's been working out with me. And I've been playing Taylor Swift constantly. And now she is a full-blown Swiftie. She's watched the documentaries.
Guess we have to do that next door then.
My childhood dog was named Swifty. That's
Oh
just
my gosh.
Yep. Named after
Okay.
Taylor Swift before she was alive.
I'll
I'll give you some
bump
starter
Taylor
songs.
Swift in honor of this podcast for sure.
That's all I want.
There you go. You got it. You got it.
Did we do it?
We did it.
All right, ladies and gents. Thank you for tuning into another episode of the Misfit Podcast. Thank you to our show sponsors. You can head to properfuel.co, use the code word Misfit to use the supplements that single-handedly got Jenna to her third consecutive CrossFit Games. Just kidding. Exclusively. You can head to sharpentheaxeco.com, use your favorite athlete code to save and to support their journey to the CrossFit Games. And last but not least, we are Misfit Athletics, misfitathletics.com, and teammisfit.com for your affiliate programming needs. We'll see you next week.